Good evening, Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. EVs in Sri Lanka, a solution or an illusion? I think you are all experiencing the high fuel prices right now. So, do you have an answer for that? Or in the world, there are some answers, but in Sri Lanka, we have still remaining a question. So today we have arranged a panel discussion together with the ISL Mechanical Engineering Section Committee, ISL Transportation Subcommittee, as well as IMECI, Institute of Mechanical Engineers, uh, Sri Lanka Group. Together, the panel discussion with the experts on the field, on the EVs as well as the mobility. So the questions what you are asking will be answered now. So I thank all of you for registering for the event and coming here to gain the insights. Without further delay, it's my privilege to invite distinguished engineering leader to formally welcome the gathering. Please join me in welcoming Engineer Granny Jailer, former President of Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka, and currently the Chairman of the ISL Transportation Subcommittee, to deliver the welcome speech. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for Engineer Granny Jailer.
Thank you, Engineer Kasunta from Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee. Dear past President and ISL Council members, Chairman Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee and Chairman IMECI and members of ISL Transport Sector Committee. In fact, for this seminar, we all three parties got together. Unless there are full effort, this won't be really successful. So I take this opportunity to thank the IMECI contribution and the ISL Mechanical Engineering sector and also the transport sector of the ISL for organizing this important, very currently everybody discuss about this EVs in Sri Lanka, a solution or an illusion. For this one, while welcoming all those who had registered and physically attending here, I also welcome our panel members, Engineer Kasun and Engineer Chaturanga, Engineer Kasun Sirivandana, all our sector experts. Thank you very much for presenting here today. And also welcome the moderator, Senior Lecturer, Department of Mechanical Engineering, University of Marudu. Thank you for coming and to accepting to moderate the session. Even in the Transport Committee and even the general public is very much keen about and always asking some questions. For example, is Sri Lanka is truly ready for widespread EV adaptation, and can EV deliver the economic and environmental benefits we accept? And at the same time, being a transport sector person, we know we spent a colossal amount of money for fuel. So with the introduction of EVs, whether we could make a shift in the conventional transport system in Sri Lanka. And one other most important thing that the Transport Sector Committee also discussed in other, what are the actions being taken by the relevant stakeholder institutions, really, for example, CEB and the Ministry of Transport and Highways, whether they have this way forward in their mind, or what sort of actions, in fact, by now they have worked out. So all those things definitely could be, we can listen to the feedbacks for all those concerns. I just got some statistics from the RNV website. It is there. Okay. Just about in year 2025. I think I have. in year 2025, the number of EV vehicles that we had brought here, as I could recall, EV cars, about 10% of the total car imports here. So with that one, then again, thanking for the, after a long time, we are going to have a good panel discussion today on a very predominant topic. Again, thanking for the panel members, eminent panel members. I know they are from the industry and also having the research background also. So with that one, I welcome the panel discussion, a great success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, Engineer Granny Jailer, for your inspiring welcome address. Ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the most anticipated segment of our event. So allow me to introduce our distinguished panelists and the moderator. So I would like to invite the panelist number one. Our first panelist is Engineer Kasun Geethanjana Gamage. He serves as a technical trainer and is a certified trainer for Mercedes-Benz passenger cars and vans. He also serves as a consultant and external verifier for the City and Guilds engineering qualifications. He holds BSc Hons in Mechanical Engineering from Kingston University, United Kingdom, and a Master for Energy Management from the Open University of Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Engineer Kasun Geethanjana Gamage, our speaker number one. Our second panelist is Engineer Chaturanga Kahawat. He currently serves as the head of after sales, responsible for the strategic development of the service network, talent pool, and charging infrastructure for BYD and Densa in Sri Lanka. He holds BSc Engineering Honors degree from University of Peradeniya and MSc in Engineering Management from the same university. He is also a CIMA Pass finalist. Please welcome Engineer Chaturanga Kahawat, our second panelist. Our third panelist is Engineer Kasun Sachit Siriwardana. He currently serves as a Director of Electronics and Embedded Systems at Vega Innovations and also holds directorships at Electratech, Worldmotive, and ChargeNet. He graduated from the University of Peradeniya with a BSc in Electrical and Electronics Engineering. Please join me in welcoming Engineer Kasun Sachit Siriwardana. Our distinguished moderator for today's discussion is Dr. J.R. Gamage. He serves as a senior lecturer in the Department of Mechanical Engineering and he serves as the secretary of the IMEC Sri Lanka Group. Dr. Gamage holds a BSc Engineering Honors in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Moratuwa, an MPhil specializing in automotive remanufacturing from the University of Strathclyde, and a PhD Sustainable Manufacturing from Glasgow Caledonian University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. J.R. Gamage. With such an accomplished panel before us, I am certain we are for a fascinating discussion. I now have the pleasure of handing over the proceedings to our moderator, Dr. J.R. Gamage, and our distinguished panelists. Thank you and enjoy the discussion.
Thank you very much, Kasunta, for the nice introductions. And thank you, audience, for coming in numbers. And we had to close the registrations as well because the number of places available is limited. And to start up with, I will explain the structure of the discussion today. So we will have 3 rounds going among us, and the 4th round will be open Q&A session. First, we will discuss about the technical aspects of the EVs. Secondly, the charging and after sale, during use phase and after use, end of use phase matters that we need to know. And thirdly, as a lay buyer, normal man, whether we are how to make the buying decision if we are to buy or not to buy an EV. So that is our simple structure today for 3 sessions. The fourth session will be the floor will be open to uh, Q&A from the audience. But we are planning to roughly run this around 1.5 hours. So that will be our day. Right. Just linking to what Engineer Granis mentioned about the 2025 importation of vehicles. Now, most EVs are motorbikes, by the way, in 2025. However, in motor cars, because our more main focus in motor cars today's discussion, 62% of out of 68,000 or motor cars imported in 2025 are petrol cars. 62% petrol, 27% diesel, and 11% EVs. 11% imported in 2025 are EVs. 2026 figures are yet to come. We'll see whether what will happen. But there's a large momentum, and you will see so many brands roaming around the roads. You cannot follow the models because the consumer is confused. That is, and we have a boost with the day before yesterday petrol price increase. So, so further we can more heated discussion can be carried on with the electric vehicles. Right. So first we will move on to the panel on technical aspects of EVs. The main thing we need to talk about in this first round, I'm starting with speaker one, Engineer Kasun. What are the available statistics of the range and the charging speed and the facilities available in the current EVs and the technical reliability of that, how a person, if it is going to use the EV, main buying decision would be the range and the price. So I think you have a good analysis on that. You can start with that. Thanks.
Thank you, Doctor. First, when it's come to the range, charging, and price. So the range is depending upon the battery capacity, actually. So once you trying to purchase a car, which kind of capacity that you are going to buy is going to impact with the range. So there are cars that start from lower range. As I mentioned in the analysis, they are starting with the battery pack from 25, then 25 kilowatt, then 35 kilowatt hours, and then if you go to the European manufacturers, it's going to start with 50 above kilowatt hours. So some vehicles are there which is having over 90 or 110 kilowatt hours, which you can run around like 795 kilometers from a single charge. And even though some manufacturers, they offer you can add more modules. Let's say you have 8 modules over there, you can add 2 more modules at the configuration name when you are importing through an agent. Sure. This is happening. We call it a spec. So when you add those 2, you can increase the range as well. So by the time, if you are going to buy an electric vehicle, depending upon the range, you need to select which battery pack or which the capacity of the battery pack, depending upon your situation. So it might be different to your daily traveling mileage. If you are in Colombo area, you are traveling like 10 to 15 kilometers or maybe below 50 kilometers. So you can use depending upon your daily travel calculation, you can choose a car which can be accommodate your traveling. So when it's come to the charging, it's an interesting question. So we have, technically we can say there are like mode 1 chargers, mode 2 chargers, mode 3 chargers, and mode 4 chargers. So mode 4 means DC charge. So, and mode 2 is what you are getting from the, if you have a house, you have a 13 ampere power output, and if you multiply it by 230, you are getting around like 3000 watts. So, if you connect a small, we call the hand charger, you can charge the vehicle, but let's say it's a 90 kilowatt hour battery. So it will take at least 28 to 32 hours to charge. So then you have the other one, wall box, where you are limited to 7 kilowatts and you can charge your car within 9 to 12 hours. So those are manufacturers coming from China, Southeast Asia. Those are the cars coming from those areas. And then when you move into the European countries, they offer more solutions such as 11 kilowatt or 22 kilowatt. So this means that car internal charger is capable to absorb that kind of capacity. So if you have a 11 kilowatt charger, which is supports your three-phase charging infrastructure available in your house, so you can reduce your charging time to 8 to, let's say earlier it is 8 hours, now it's for 5 hours. So likewise, and the charging structures are moving actually building up. And there are some solutions coming from the manufacturers. Now, instead of wall box, which is you have to install in your house, now there is a way that you can carry out the charger in your car alone. So if you have an industrial socket outlet in anywhere, so you can plug that charger and you can easily charge it up. It's also support up to 7 kilowatt hours, which is very newly available. I think day before yesterday it came to Sri Lanka. I have a picture with me. So I had a chance, I will show it to you. So and then we have the DC charging facility. Unfortunately, when I was in the beginning of the when we import in the cars to Sri Lanka, we did not have a lot of infrastructure. The facilities are very small scale. Sometimes we had only, starting with the DC chargers, it start from 30 kilowatts, then 50 kilowatts, then 60 kilowatts. When I was traveling to Malaysia, you can see even 360 kilowatts, which is like a, we call high chargers. So the infrastructure are really developed on that countries. So in this case, right now I see there are a lot of chargers are coming up. But the problem is, in your car, there is a DC charger, which is supports maybe 30 kilowatt, maybe 60 kilowatt, or maybe 110 kilowatt. So if you install, if you go to a charging place where you can plug your car to a 60 kilowatt charger, you can easily charge it. But sometimes if you see the brochures, it says it is charging from 10 to 80% within 23 minutes. Some brochures say 30 to 80. That means only you are charging through the fast charger 50%. So the charging types are depending upon those infrastructures and capability. You need to know which kind of charger you are putting in. So that's my answer for your question.
I would like to move to Chaturanga, because these batteries are made in not in Sri Lanka, or different climate. So the charging discharging cycles, because before we preparing for this panel discussion, and Kasanta took a lot of effort to get some feedback from the stakeholders. There was a question that whether there is any complications in discharging or number of cycles, or during one cycle charging or discharging, the efficiency, would it differ because we are in a tropical country and causing any safety hazard or fire risk because of that? You can start with that.
Thanks, Dr. Kamali. So I think before I specifically get into that, we have to understand now there's when it comes to EVs or the latest technology electrical vehicles, we call it NEVs because now there's multiple types of EVs that we bring on. You can see, I mean, we will get back to this in the last topic when we are discussing the buying decisions. But you can see PHEVs, there's REVs, and then EVs. So there's
different types of EVs as well in the country, which uses the battery in different methods. If you look at BEVs, this is the main discussion point, which is the battery electric vehicles, which purely depends on the uh, battery for power source. And whereas the PHEVs and REVs, REVs, which is the range extended electric vehicles, and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, both can be either charged or can use fuel as a power source. So how these two differ is mainly actually basically BEVs purely get the power input from charging. You have to have external charging, while the REVs and PHEVs, you can either pump fuel and then get the engine to generate electricity for the battery, and then the battery runs the motor. Or else you can either charge them and run on the EV mode as well. So looking at all those, so we, I think, with multiple brands, we now into Sri Lanka, we import all types of EVs to Sri Lanka. But we have to look at the aspect that we have been, in terms of the industry, automobile industry, compared to other South Asian countries as well, we are actually behind around 7 years because of the whole import ban, which was implemented in 2019. So even though these EVs are new to the country, these EVs have been actually successfully operating in countries similar to Sri Lanka, like Philippines. You can go to Malaysia, you can go to Singapore, India. These are countries which actually have been using these models and brands for the last 5 to 7 years, where we are actually one of the late movers. So actually, that's one of the other factors. So since these products have been in these countries for more than 5 years, they've actually been proven they are actually reliable or practical products which can be used in other markets. So before coming to Sri Lanka, these products have actually been tested in other countries as well. So I think we shouldn't be having a doubt on that aspect. But in another thing is, you have to understand that we have to understand that these countries, especially manufacturers, especially for international market exports, they customize the vehicle. It's not the same sensor that you use in China or Japanese market. They export to the European market or South Asian market as well. They slightly differ certain things to make sure that we call it localization. There's a localization process as well, where they do certain modifications to make sure that the vehicle is localized in a certain context. And another aspect I should bring up is, so yes, back in the day when we had lithium ion or NCM batteries, where heat or temperature differences used to impact the battery health a lot. Now the companies have actually shifted from lithium ion or NMC to LFP, where LFP, looking at their material and structure and everything else, these are materials that have very minimal impact in terms of thermal shifts. Now, even there used to be a misconception that even though EVs have 100% battery, you can only utilize 80%. People used to say that because these older types of batteries had concerns charging over 80%. They used to heat up and takes more time as well. But with the new technology, all vehicles that have actually LFP batteries, you can go all the way up to 100%. There's no limitation. The only limitation is, for any batteries, last 20% takes more time to charge. So actually, when you look at it, so the most of the information that we have right now, I think in terms of market as well, it's a bit outdated. So whatever with the products that we are receiving to Sri Lanka is also with the latest technologies in battery technology and so on, which does actually cater to a local context in a tropical country as well. I don't actually managing the products over a year as well. There's no specific localized or region-wise concerns that we come across with the problems, because they've already tested these products throughout the Southeast Asian countries as well. I think sums up the question.
Thank you very much, Puranga. And Kasum number 2. And the same question throws to you. What are the technical aspects You may use your slides if you want to explain anything. I think our support is there with Kasunta to show if you want to explain something with the diagram or slide.
Yes, sir. So to add what we have discussed, uh, the if you go to early days, like back in 2015, we had the opportunity to import Nissan Leafs for the country. So in that context, I would say we are kind of early adapters for EVs. Of course, we had problems. We couldn't import the vehicles on time, but so if you look at as a South Asian country, we were the early adapters. So the vehicles that we import back in 2015, majority of them are Nissan Leafs, which we had no active cooling in the battery packs. And the chemistry they used is called LTO, which is a battery design not for countries like us. So we had that. I mean, there are leaf users face various problems because of these batteries because they degraded. I mean, like very exponentially they degraded. So our people have that mentality where they look at other EVs in the same, they put it in the same box and think that these new EVs will have the same problem. So if a vehicle comes with active cooling, like almost all the modern vehicles comes with active cooling, where it try to keep the battery in optimum condition. It doesn't matter the outside temperature is high or low, it will keep the battery in optimum condition while it's charging and running. So you have to think about that point when you're buying a vehicle, whether the battery comes with active cooling or not. If it's not with active cooling, whether the vehicle is designed for our countries or not. Because Nissan Leaf, what they have mentioned is this vehicle is not designed for countries like us back in 2015. But we have imported through third-party importers, majority from the Japan. So that was the problem that we faced. And of course, the battery life, it will vary with the temperature of the environment because we don't keep the vehicle running all the time. We store the vehicle in places where we get direct sunlight. Of course, our country is a tropical country. We have a somewhat high temperature. That will affect the battery to a certain level where you don't have to think about that with the modern vehicles, I would say. But of course, keeping your vehicle in a closed environment with a cooler environment is something that you can do to extend the battery life. Then again, the interesting thing with the LFP technology is now, these are not like 50 years old technologies that we are using. So we are using like 10 years old or so. So all this data is new. So what the researchers have found is sometimes these LFP batteries, if you charge it to 100%, it behaves more like the trend towards low degradation if you charge it to 100%. But of course, if you charge it daily with fast chargers, that will affect the battery if the temperature goes high. If the vehicle thermal management system can't manage the temperature, that will affect it. So those are the main things.
Just to compare, now you were talking about battery life. Now, old day 2015 day cars, EVs, EV batteries versus now LFP, the latest cars coming with latest battery technologies. What is the anticipated battery life? If you perfectly use it versus if you are use it like a Sri Lankan user.
Okay. So majority of the LFPs comes with 6,000 cycle life. So if you divide 6,000 by 365, you'll see it's like more than 15 years lifetime. But the thing is, in the practical cases where, because those data is for optimal conditions, but the practicality is little bit different. So we have seen, even when we I mean, doing some reverse engineering, and we were testing all these cells for a long time now with our research projects. And what we experience is not exactly what the manufacturer is saying. So even though they claim 6,000 cycles, if the manufacturer is reputed, that will last for at least 3,000 cycle life, which is more than enough for a EV. If you frequently charge it every day, at least it will last for more than 10 years. But the battery degradation is something you have to expect. That you have to keep in mind, this battery will degrade with a certain time. Let's say within next 8 years, I have to experience a degradation. Is it going to be a problem for my daily travel? So that's the question that you should ask from yourself. If that's if you can manage with that, I mean, for example, we've been into manufacturing EV three-wheelers. So we have deployed more than 200 brand new units now. And some of these vehicles, there are more than 120,000 kilometers being driven for last 18 months. Because these are hardcore daily drivers. So they used to drive more than 250 kilometers per day. So with the fast charging, they charge it twice or three times a day with the fast chargers. So even though after 120,000 kilometers, they still manage to drive 250 kilometers continuously. The only thing happened is they have to come to a fast charging location more than 2 times a day. So they are not willing to go for battery exchange or new battery because they can manage it. So the same thing will be the thing that you have to face if you are buying a EV car. Is the range enough for you for your daily commute? So,
Right. Go ahead. Vivek.
I think to add to that, Dr. Gamage, based on this experience that we've had in after sales, I think Sri Lanka is a country where the consumption is very less. I mean, 80% of the customers drive less than 10,000 kilometers for a whole year. That means 30 kilometers a day. So the usage of actually, even though we think so a range, an average range of a EV is now minimum 300 and goes up to more maybe 500, which in Sri Lanka, which means if you have a full charge, it's highly unlikely that you will charge it every single day for a normal use. If you are talking at on a not in a commercial sense, but if you look at it in a private sense, where private users will rarely, if you fully charge a car, you can minimum use it for 2 weeks at least. So looking at that, and also statistics says in terms of uh, European countries and also American countries that 80% of these vehicles are charged at home. More than 80% of vehicles are charged at home. So looking at all that, even if you charge daily, like Kasun explained, so even if you charge daily for 3,000 cycles, still that counts up to, I don't know, or even 4,000 cycles goes up to 10,000, more than 10,000. I mean, 10 years. So looking at all that aspect, I think it depends on usage as well as how frequently you charge. You need to top up every single day. Am I wasting a cycle or am I utilizing it properly? So it's a matter of, I think, knowledge that you have to gain while you're using the product as well.
Right. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to add one more point. Now, we have seen in the market that when it's come to the personal usage of the electric vehicle, when it's come to the cyclic aging, now let's say some customers, they tend to charge the vehicle even that your battery is having 60% reserve. So why don't you try to charge it around like 30 and then to 80%? Sometimes we have seen if you are trying to top up like the fuel that we top up our fuel tank, so keeping it up to 80% daily, it will degrade your battery. So it will also the charging cycles also you are wasting. So try to take the optimum range from like 30% and then you charge it up to 80%. And only when you require, you use the fast charging. And if you are going for a long distance, you charge it up to the 100%, and then you can utilize your battery in a greater way. So it's one of my personal.
Right.
well, one more thing to say, sir, because these manufacturer cycle life, So they count it like from 0% to 100% as a one cycle. But it's not the case if you charge it frequently from 80% to 100%, because it will consume 20% of the battery, but still it's in the high unstable region. So that means, let's say someone is charging from 80% to 100 5 times, it doesn't count like one cycle. The effect is into like, it's like more like 5 or 6 cycles, degradation will be there. So it's always advised, sometimes it's from 10% to 90%, the manufacturer of course mention it in their handbooks. If not, majority of the vehicles 20 to 80, like he said.
Yes, I think we had a great discussion in the round one. So I would like to start with Kasun Rajit again, because you are the best person to start this round two about the infrastructure, charging infrastructure. Now we have different vehicles, different types of vehicles, different brands, different models ordered from different parts of the world, based on our affordability and where to charge. Now, can we go to Katragama and thereafter can we go to Jaffna? Where to charge? And whether our port will suit the available domestic charging stations. Or the manufacturer take care of their vehicle charging or providing across the country charging networks. So over to you to start with your spreadability or availability of charging points. And if you have statistics per station queue, or rather waiting time, or rather number of vehicles per station, charging station at any given time, that would be interesting thing to know. Okay.
So charging is I think the most interesting question, and in that case, I've been trying my best to keep my profile low, because not to mention that I'm a director for ChargeNet as well. But yeah, so Kasanta, if you can help me with the slide. Can you go back to the first slide set that the charging ports are visible, that where we can start something? Third one. Okay. So we all know that EVs comes with all these standard charging protocols or charging ports. So fortunately, even though we had no regulations in our country, so far the country only got CHAdeMO and CCS2. I have seen couple of GBT vehicles, GBT standard vehicles as well, but those are some, I mean, test vehicles that brought down to country. So CHAdeMO is from the Japanese spec, and CCS2 is the European spec. We thought from the beginning, majority of the vehicles came with CHAdeMO. We thought the trend is towards CCS2 because it's modern and the protocol supports newer vehicles and supports new features as well. But I don't know whether how to say this is not unfortunate, but we have seen the new vehicles, even Porsche Taycan came up with CHAdeMO. So that's a problem that we face, because CHAdeMO protocol is, there are some limitations, like you can't pump more than 100 kilowatt of power with the CHAdeMO. Not the 100 exact number, but that's a problem that we face. So these high power vehicles came up with CHAdeMO, where they have very limited number of charging facilities available in the country at the moment. Because the trend is toward the European ports, CCS2. So the majority of the chargers deployed in the country is CCS2 at the moment. So which is a problem that we face in the country. Kasanta, can you go to the slide set?
I'll add more point. Now the CHAdeMO, it's an interesting story. I researched on that, how the name came up. CHAdeMO means demo means in Japanese culture, if you are trying to offer a tea to a person, it will take 30 minutes. So that's how they came up with ChargeMo. So once you are having the key, your car can be charged. So that's the concept, and ChargeMo came up.
Okay. So
Until the picture
yeah,
comes,
well,
I think
let
we
me
can.
start.
Yeah.
So we started our journey in ChargeNet back in 2015, where Nissan Leaf imported to the country. So can you go to the slide? Yes. So at the moment, in our country, there are three major networks currently. So if you look at the figures, these are the rough numbers, maybe little bit change and rapidly growing now. So we have almost 200 EV fast chargers at the moment, which is very good point, I would say, because if you look at back in 2022, we had only 20 fast chargers also. And then we have commercial level 2 chargers, which is not growing at a fast scale, but slowly those are adding to the network as well. Other than these major networks, there are a few other players also came into the market and looking at the opportunities, and they also deployed a couple of chargers and helping the EV users as much as possible they can. Kasanta, can you go to next slide? Kasanta, the next slide, please. Yeah. So I'll talk about these three points, the history of the infrastructure. So like I said, since 2015, we've been in the operation, and even at that time, it's like today, we had an exciting time period with the Nissan Leafs because we had zero tax for Nissan Leafs at that time. So almost majority of the vehicles brought down to country at that period with zero taxations were Nissan Leaf. So people came into charging, developing the infrastructure. They came up with all these. As I remember, there were like 5 major networks tried to establish. Even the CEB came into the picture with all these ABB chargers. Unfortunately, with the number of vehicles available in the country and with the support we had from the charger manufacturers, none of them survived, I would say. None of them survived. Only CEB tried their best and private entities tried their best. Not because of we had few vehicles, but was the main reason was, I would say, for countries like China, number of chargers that we brought down to our country is very limited. So they had a question whether why should we support to very limited number of chargers, because sometimes they had to come to our country to do a repair. Sometimes they had to send their technicians to do the repair, and so spending time and money on maintaining very few chargers was a problem. But hopefully now we have almost 200 charging points, and it's rapidly growing, and EVs are coming into the market. So I think that won't be a problem anymore. The second thing is the revenue that you can earn from a charging station. This is an interesting question, because when we bring down EVs and as a customer point of view, they think the infrastructure should be there. Sometimes they don't look at the infrastructure first before they import the vehicles. Sometimes they feel, of course, if your range is not enough, you have the range density, like you said, how can I travel to Jaffna? Can I travel to Kataragama? So those are the questions that you're gonna face. But from the CPO's point, charge point operator's point, it's a different whole game. If you look at the tariff that we have given for the EV users, not the EV users, the charge point operators. So majority of the charge point operators operates under, sorry, I think these markings has gone. The supply demand is above 42 kVA, which is if you have a 60 kilowatt charger, you have to go through that. Then you have to pay 66 rupees per kilowatt hour at a peak time. And then again, you have to pay the demand charge, which is something that we forget. We don't count into that. So demand charge is, you as a professionals, I think you all know, but to get a better understanding, let's say you have a charging station in Kataragama where you operate at 100 kilowatt hour. So you can deliver 100 kilowatt power. That particular charger, let's assume you got only one client throughout the month. So there were no other EV users, only one client. And that particular client charged, let's say, consumed 100 kilowatt hour, not 100 kilowatt hour, they took 100 kilowatt of power for 15 minutes only. Okay. Then at the end of the month, that charging point operator have to pay 100 into 1,500. That means 150,000 rupees as the electricity bill. So that's the question that we face. So if there are many EVs in that area, he will be able to bear that cost, because that 150,000 is the demand charge that you have to pay without considering about the consumption. So if you have multiple EVs coming into his place, that 150,000 is kind of, they can absorb it. But if there were no vehicles, that's the question. So if you look at the landscape here, all these charges, even though they call under one network, majority of the charges belongs to individual owners. So they invested for a charger and joining with a network, they operate. So they won't be able to bear that demand charge behalf of you, behalf of the EV user. So that's the major problem that CPOs are facing at the moment. So until we find a solution, or until we have significant number of vehicles available in the country, we won't be able to see the whole map filled with fast chargers. So that's the reality, I would say. And then if I have time, Kasanta, I can go to the next slide, please. And then this is the problem that we face as a nation. So we always talk about the solar and all these the fossil fuel problems and hydropower things. So the left side, the figure is from the real data that I have extracted from our CMS, charge management system. So you see around after 8 p.m., still the demand is high, which is the problem that we face, because at that time period, there's no solar and hydro is operating at peak. So it's a cost for the country. So this is where we have to, we have to balance this load somehow. There are methods, this is not rocket science. So there are methods that there are things that we can do, things that government can do, and things EV users can do. So this is, I just wanted to show you this figure. So this is the reality.
Right. I think we'll move on. And there's very nice graphics that will show so many stories. I would like to move to Chaturanga. Is there any standardization, certification for these individual charging service providers? Because there are different varieties of, again, models. How about the standardization? Is there a central body to do that? What is the situation in the foreign countries and what is the situation in Sri Lanka?
I think I'll break it down into break it down into different sections. The first thing is, I think, why we need chargers is because we import EVs to Sri Lanka, right? So we have to first regulate the importing. So the concern in Sri Lanka is the first problem is we don't have control over importing. Even a single user can import one vehicle. But if you look at European Union, there is a standard requirement in the legislation where it says the country is required to maintain 1 to 10 ratio of chargers. There has to be one charger for 10 vehicles in the country. So the importers are liable to maintain that ratio and ensure the chargers are there facilitated. But in Sri Lanka, like as mentioned, because I was working at AMW, that then Nissan Leaf, there was around 4,000 vehicles which came into the country, almost 4,500, I think. So, but with that, because it was individual sales people or direct imports which came from UK and uh, Japan, which led to inconsistent charging requirements. Like you said, char demo was there, and then these vehicles are not suitable to Sri Lanka. Then there was no one to invest in charges unless someone like ChargeNet decided to, okay, these are business opportunity and we should invest in it. Rather that who is not completely in into vehicle importation at all at that time, right? So so someone who wasn't even importing the vehicle had to step in and say, okay, we'll fit the charges. So I think Sri Lanka, in terms of that, there's no control in terms of commitment towards the importer when we are there importing charges. That is one concern we have, I think. The second thing I think I need to highlight is uh, Kasum showed different types of charges. Why it's different is so Japan has already been uh, ahead of us in terms of EV implementation. So their country, they thought CharDemo is the future. So their whole country's infrastructure in terms of charging is CharDemo. So which is why they import most of the vehicles to their country with CharDemo ports. So even though they bring the same vehicle we import to Japan, they would request the manufacturer to manufacture it using the CharDemo charger. So like that, when we import, I think when we import mainly, I think the agents that now import so CCS2. CCS2 is the most commonly used now. It's also the standard in uh, the European Union where they use CCS2. So so but like I said again, because you don't have controls over imports and people can import from anywhere, so the vehicles which are imported from the Japanese, Japan or certain other countries come up with still these old char demo port, where CCS2 port, whereas it's more advanced, you can go to higher charging capabilities, and also the charger can communicate with the vehicle as well. There's data communication as well between in the CCS2 port. So I think that is one of the things that because there's no regulation properly implemented in Sri Lanka, that also leads to inconsistency in demand for chargers, I can say. So even when we were implementing chargers in key supermarkets, we had to make sure we had both types of ports, char demo and CCS2 to cater both of the types. But I think moving forward, I think the future is CCS2. That's one other thing. But in terms of charges, I think PUCSL is the Public Utilities Committee, is the main body which governs these type of imports and regulations in terms of how they are implemented, the charging rates and so on. So up until so we did not actually have a proper regulation until PUCSL launched their 2023, right? 2023, they launched their first a policy in terms of how chargers should be installed, what are the safety in terms of safety aspects, what should be done, and what are the rates and tariffs that you can charge, and also how to then now there's also a requirement to register as well. If you're having if you're planning to install a charge, you have to also register in PUCSL. That type of procedure is there, but it's still not developed. I think they are also working on an upgrade. No? They are working on a new version which explains the specifics into what are the charges that can be installed and so on. But that's there. But one more thing to add in terms of charger investors. So there, I think there's mainly three charge investors in Sri Lanka, but also there are people who do not do mainly the capex. They also it's not like these three people invest all the capex and do the charger as well. It's now has become a business model. I do want to speak about brands, but if we talk about our Keys network, what our charger concept is. So the charger is there in almost 50 of our Keys outlets, and where the charging on average, based on our statistics, is 30 minutes per consumer. On average, consumer will use it for 30 minutes. During that 30 minutes, almost all customers tend to go into the queues and then wait there or do some shopping. So always this charger business is all related to a secondary income. So now we see hotels. We see hotels. They're having DC fast chargers in their locations. So people, when they book a reservation, they can, even booking apps, you can pick if there's a charge or not. So it can go to that level. There's actually supermarkets. There's ice cream shops, coffee shops, different shops that try to go into this concept where the customers. So I think if we talk about social media and whatnot, actually the business right now, businesses are trying to buy people's time, right? Time and attention. So right now the concept is, since charging takes 30 minutes of time, now businesses are more prone to invest in something along with the charger, that the customer spends 30 minutes doing, generating another revenue to the same investor. So it's, even though there's three different companies which mainly invest in chargers, mostly if you look at it, it's the business owner who has maybe had a 50-50 revenue share with the investor, or they've made the full investment where they pay rent to this installer and so on, because now it's trending. Now actually, if you properly install a charger in a hub, you can, the revenue ROI is actually less than 1 year. So I think looking at all that, we are moving ahead. I think, but with time we'll get there. We'll get to maybe 1 to 10 in the next 2-3 years.
Some spice to the thing discussion. Now we are, I think, also discussing on electric cars, right? Now I just searching before in preparation for this discussion. Motorbike fans are there. A lot of our community, larger market is for motorbikes than cars. Now there has been 250,000 registrations of motorbikes in Sri Lanka in 2025, out of which 34,000 full electric motorbikes. Now, how about they are moving into Kasun? They are charging, and whether it's the same port that we use, whether we can use the same charging stations, and continue with the discussion. If you want to show your slides, as
Okay, good question actually. Now, actually, I'm a user of an electric motorcycle. So actually, in Sri Lanka, buying a car is not your own decision. So you need to have a chat with your family or wife make the decision. So I tried to push her to buy an electric vehicle. She never agreed. So and finally she agreed to sell my bike. It was a petrol one, and during the fuel scarcity and all, she told, okay, now we sell the bike at least, then we have an alternative solution to at least to go and see my mother. So then she agreed to sell the bike. So I sold it, my petrol one, and then I acquired a electric motorcycle as a first step. So convincing my family is the hardest part when it's come to buying anything. I believe all the gentlemen here is also agreed with me. But anyway, so coming back to the question, so the charging port of the motorcycles are really different. It's not standardized yet. So you have a lot of brands coming into the market, and everyone is having different charging ports. And there are some manufacturers who are selling motorcycle with fast chargers. And as scaling down to them right now, they offer free fast charging. So, so that's one of the way I see to trend, and more people are going with the electric bicycles because it's a secondary vehicle and you can easily go. And yesterday we had a lot of traffic. I enjoyed the bikes ride with my wife, and we went to the Vesak. No fuel cost. Even the price went up. It doesn't cost for me because I'm having my own solar panels over there. So it's become a very like attractive decision that I took. Even my family was admired. I think I have answered the question.
Now, before finishing the second round, I'm throwing a question to all any of you. Now, in media, we see some technique called battery swapping. Battery swapping. What is the status of Sri Lanka to move into battery swapping?
I think first to add to that, I think battery swapping is depends on the technology of the brand as well. There's different brands. I work with different brands. So battery swapping is mainly China. In China, they practice where when your batteries level is low, you can simply go to a charging station where they simply swap the battery. They remove the battery and place it in. It mainly in China. I've been to China a few times where I've observed mainly this works for smaller vehicles like bicycles and three wheels where the battery is small in a smaller size. That's one because handling of a battery itself is complicated because battery itself, EV battery itself will weigh on average 700 kilos. And on top of that, if you look at the uh, cooling methods, so most of I think we discussed this before. The cooling method for most of the vehicles now EVs is either liquid cooling or refrigerant cooling. Where before for us you to simply remove a battery, even the battery inside the battery there's cooling lines or refrigerant lines. So for you to simply remove a battery, you have to maybe disconnect the AC, disconnect the AC lines, extract the AC or coolant and so on. So the removal and refit of a battery makes it's a bit complicated than usual. So it's a matter of the manufacturer deciding, am I going to have an option where it's easy swappable, or am I going to have a really good cooling system on my battery where the battery lasts long, but you don't have to swap. So I think battery swapping mainly is more suitable for smaller cars, smaller vehicles like bikes and tuk-tuks. But this is used for commercial vehicles as well. But we've seen it using in not for passenger vehicles where the customer is continually using the vehicle, but for commercial vehicles where there are certain idling time, they use this battery swapping technique as well for commercial vehicles, but not for passenger vehicles as I've seen mainly.
Yeah, so I might have different view about battery swapping because we did when we were designing the three wheelers, we did a huge research on battery swapping and what are the drawbacks and how, because we had to came up with a solution, either we stick to fast charging or we do the swapping. So what we found out is a little bit interesting because battery swapping is being patented by Tesla back in 2014 or 2013. I'm not sure where, but they never commercialized it because they saw the charging technologies evolving such a way that you don't have to think about swapping at all. So where the swapping is success in China and in India, there are communities where I would say in this way. So let's say take example from tuk-tuks. So our tuk-tuk drivers, they expect their tuk to go from Colombo to Jaffna, Colombo to down south at any time. So they don't stick to their daily travel. Like, I mean, we can't compare it with Indian people because they used to drive 50 kilometers radius. That's all. But our people, if they grab a hire from here to, let's say, 50 kilometers away, they will definitely jump on it. So swapping is something not going to work for those drivers because you don't have swapping stations everywhere. There were 2 pilot projects that did in Sri Lanka as well with the battery swapper. None of them, shown good result because to pick up a battery, sometimes you have to travel like 20 kilometers because your home is not located close to the swapping station. Then you lose 20 kilometers, and then again you have to put the battery back and come to home. You lose another 20 kilometers. So swapping is very limited to like 50 to 100 kilometers range, like he said. Then you already losing 40 kilometers range. So because of that reason, swapping is not good for these commercial applications, even for tuk-tuks. And for bikes, of course, that's a good option. But then again, for the batteries, we have to spend at least 1.5 times investment for the batteries. So this, which is a huge investment that someone should put and keep aside. But then again, battery technologies are evolving rapidly. So what you have invest today may be outdated by tomorrow. So because of that reason, people are not willing to invest. And one more thing, Japanese are trying the battery swapping. This is the internal data that I got from one of the Japanese manufacturer. They have come up with a solution. They partner up all these Japanese manufacturers, they partner up together and came to a point they will use one battery pack, one standardized battery pack for all their applications, including earth moving machines like the backhoe, the bulldozers, and everything. So that's a good initiative they have taken, but I haven't seen that yet commercialized. But that might be a success in future for their applications.
Right. Thank you very much. So I think it's time for us to end the round 2. We'll move on to the round 3 and the final round of planned or research questions and answers. I think better I not talk. So I have also ideas, but okay. We'll come to the final session, our round 3, discussing on the economics of EV and what factors does it make the buying decision of the customers, the audience. And here we have a select niche audience, which is engineers. I hope there are no doctors here. I think there is one doctor as well, family member of an engineer. So how to make buying decision? Now the permit also not available for the government servants, including myself. So it's very difficult to afford the fully electric vehicle. The dilemma is between EV and the hybrid. Still people prefer hybrid. And my point of view, we are confused. The customers are confused with which model to buy and how to select the one that suits your needs. And if you can only afford one vehicle because of the affordability, would it be suitable to go for a fully electric one, even if you have solar at your home? You can start with Kasun.
Okay. So again, when it's come to electric vehicle, Kasunda, can you go to the slide number 2? I think. Okay. 3. Okay. So there are a lot of electric cars manufactured in regions. So if you come to the buying power, you need to approximately spend 5 to 6 million to an entry level car. So which is again with the battery pack of 18. And if you go to the bottom line, so you can see some of the European manufacturers, and you can see the motor power is also increasing. The battery power also increased really very well. And I haven't mentioned the price because when you calculate the price with this current situation, even for an entry Europe car, earlier it was around 32 million to 40 million. Right now I inquired and it went up to more than 50 million. So that's the reality. And if you have a hybrid vehicle, so that means you have again a high voltage battery or low voltage battery. In European cars, we have a technology called 48 volt, which we designed as a low voltage technique, but it is we call a mild hybrid one. And then we have another technology like the range extenders, where you have a ICE or internal combustion engine, and it coupled with the motor generator, and it will charge the battery. And this is another solution. And the difference between these two, now, if you have a range extender, you can charge the vehicle through your own home charging port. So, but it does not go for a long run. Like, let's say minimum, if it's a European one, 90 kilometers, or Asian manufacturers, it might be deferred to lower than that. So again, if you've done the calculation for the first 5 years, the electric vehicles your operating cost is really minimum, because if you use it very well, now even you have the intelligent recuperations, you can select the recuperation levels, the brake pads are wearing out will be lower, and so the maintenance cost is no. And then when you calculate the first 5 years, you are totally safe. Now let's assume as a dealer, you are coming from the manufacturer, so after 8 years, you need to replace the battery. But ideal scenario, it is not like that. We have proven scenarios like even after 300,000 kilometer runs, there are vehicles, the HOC level, SOH level is more than 87%. So that means like, even if you run after like 8 to 9 years, your battery might be in very good condition. That depends. So let's say you need to replace the battery. A ballpark decision, now when it's come to the battery cost, sometimes it is 1/3 of your vehicle car price. That's the reality right now. So, and if you add that cost to your battery, and then if you calculate with the hybrid vehicles, sometimes in a European vehicle, it come to a very close calculation. So, but it might be different with the other brands. So always when you are taking a decision whether you are going to a hybrid or an electric vehicle, calculate and see what is the impact, and then you need to make the buying decision. I think that's might be a.
Thank you very much. Now, to move to Chaturanga, there was a feedback from one of the person who answered our questionnaire. In case of an emergency in the sense, not a vehicle emergency, if family emergency, you need the vehicle to go to the hospital and your vehicle is out of charge. If you have the only vehicle as EV, now you can recommend that it's up to you to, if you are responsible to keep it fully charged or whatever. And that is how to address, and in that situation, how to make this buying decision to have a sole EV. That is the main question, and there was a big response rate for that. If we have an emergency, that is the main thing that is pulling EV purchases behind. So, as a person in the Chinese EV market, how do you respond to that?
Okay, I think before that, I'll also go to the type of vehicles again. But so, like I mentioned, 80% according to studies done in research done in Europe and especially American countries, 80% of the charging happens in at home. At home. So another thing is, I think so. We've been operating. We've sold more than 10,000 cars in the last year, and we have come across cases where the battery percentage customers driven below 5%. That's, I think, over a year, only 5 cases is good. I think around 5 cases where customers have driven or not properly planned the trip where the customer ended up with a low battery percentage, where we, as service provider, provide a service, we free of charge tow the vehicle or carry the vehicle to the closest charging station, and then we charge the vehicle. But I think it becomes a habit when you're using an EV, when you get used to it, just like none of your phones will be less than 10% or 5% right now. Maybe 1 or 2% might be having less than 10% or 5% battery. Just like you daily or charge your phone, I think it becomes a habit where when you're charging the vehicle, you charge daily, or you'll become a habit. It will become a habit when you're charging your vehicle based on your usage. It can be daily, it can be weekly, but most of our customers which we are dealing with also have come to I mean, got the habit of it. There are people who actually bought EV as a secondary vehicle, but now using it as a primary vehicle because now they've gotten used to the habit. Now I had a friend over in Colombo yesterday who bought one of our cars as a second vehicle, but he came to Colombo in that EV from Kandy because the hotel he booked had a DC fast charger. So it was a matter of deciding where to book the hotel, and okay, hotel with a fast charger. So one way I can, it's less than 200 kilometers. I can charge there. He properly planned the trip, and then he came to Colombo, went back in the same car. He said less than I think less than 5,000 rupees just to come to Colombo and go back. While they are in a nice vehicle, it will cost you maybe 15,000 rupees. So I think going to uh, going to the types of vehicles we have, just to give you, since we were discussing about uh, how you're going to pick the type of vehicle you want. So there's like I said, there's ICE vehicles, there's different types of hybrid vehicles, and then there's EVs. So there's four types. ICE vehicle is where there's only an engine, where the engine will provide power to the drivetrain, where you're purely dependent on fuel. Where there's more than, I think there's more than, there must be more than 1,000 fuel stations in Sri Lanka where you can simply pump fuel. But then you have the hybrid vehicles where there's a small battery inside the vehicle which allows the engine to turn on and off when required. When it's idling, for example, if you're stuck in traffic, the battery will help the vehicle to manage uh, AC and all that with minimum power, where there's a uh, small battery. Then there's PHEVs and REEVs, where there's you can charge the vehicle and also you can pump fuel to the vehicle as well. These vehicles, like for example, one of the best sellers is a PHEV where you can simply charge. It has a EV range of 90 kilometers. Where if you're actually living in Colombo, you can simply just charge the vehicle and drive even every day and then drive around Colombo just on EV mode. But when you're traveling when you're traveling long distance, you can simply switch to the HEV mode where the battery will charge from the fuel. So this is another. So people who have range anxiety, who think there's a limitation in terms of driving high ranges, actually can stick to the PHEV. Then battery electric vehicles are actually purely battery powered vehicles, right? Only energy sources batteries, where you will purely depend on charging your vehicle at home or outstations for this. So it totally depends on your I think your preference in terms of picking what you want to go ahead with. There are people who are now switching to BEVs because now, like Kaushal mentioned, also there are 200 plus DC fast chargers. But also considering all chargers, including 7 kilowatt, 22 kilowatt, 30 kilowatt, 60 kilowatt, there's actually around 600 plus chargers in Sri Lanka, covering all around the country, even East Coast, Northern, everywhere there's chargers. So people are shifting to battery electric vehicles as well. But
Right. Yeah. Now, as a common customer, we invest on cars. like lands, right? So we always look at the resale value because Sri Lanka is one of the countries where the vehicles are appreciating, not depreciating. So what is now, he mentioned that about 8 years, your battery life is typically end. So you typically run for say let's say you had the EV for 6 years. You know, roughly 2 years of battery left battery replacement is coming. Now, what would be the resale value and how to solve that equation when you are investing on the EV? Whether it is an investment, that is the main question. You buy a Toyota petrol car, you can cash it anytime. But what about your EVs? I would like to move to, you can add if you want.
Yeah. So I think now the question is my petrol vehicle going to be an investment in 5 years time? Because that's a question that I ask myself because I'm currently driving a hybrid. So is it time to sell it and move to a EV, or should I stick to this one for a couple of years more? If someone asks from me, I'm going to buy my first vehicle. Let's say he don't have any other vehicle. It's his only vehicle that he's going to buy. Is it good for me to go for an EV, or should I stick with the petrol driven vehicle? I would say go for EV because that's the future. But like he said, there are various things. I mean, we look at EV as a whole, but there are HEVs, PHEVs, and the fully electric vehicles. So depending on your lifestyle, your requirement, you can stick to PHEV if you want. Like he said, if your daily running kilometers is less than 90 kilometers, you can stick to plug-in hybrid. Still, you can use it as a fuel-driven vehicle, like your ordinary ICE engine. You can go for longer rides. So be wise, like you have to adapt to your lifestyle and decide what you want. But then again, like he said, the 1/3 of the cost is the battery. So battery replacement that you have to think after like 8 years or so. Like I said, still if the range is enough for your applications, your daily travel, still you will be able to use that vehicle. The good example is the Nissan Leafs. So the Leafs been manufactured since 2013 and we have the vehicles here starting from 2015. Of course, some of the vehicles, they had a range anxiety and there were no solution at that time. So some of these people convert their Leafs to hybrid vehicles as well. But we have seen now they found solutions. Of course, the original manufacturer is not willing to send the batteries. That's a different thing because we imported the vehicles via third-party channels. But still people found a solution. There are vehicles that been used for last 10 years and they replaced their batteries and now even with greater range, like they can do more than 400 kilometers. So this is a question that we think that ahead of time, I would say, like you have to think about this. Of course, you have to do the calculations, but this problem you will face after 8 years if you go for a good EV.
Right, I think. If you want to add anything, yes.
Yes, I'll add one more point. Now, I missed one of the questions. I think traveling in an electric vehicle is more safer when you are comparing with the petrol car. So, Asunda, can you go back to a few slides? Now, a tendency to get a caught on a fire on an ICE vehicle is much higher than the EVs, but controlling a EV fire is really a disaster. So, I'll show one of the slides. Yes. Now, in this slide, you can see there are some fire blankets, which we like right now brought to Sri Lanka. You can see in my left-hand side, the red color one. It weighs around like 50 kilos. And when I did the trainings to the fire brigades, fire department, and they did not have this kind of solutions. So that's the reality. Now, let's say in an outgassing event, we need to put it in an electric vehicle. Otherwise, these outgases are coming in and it goes in the workshop. So we cannot go near to the vehicle. So we brought this one in a case of emergency. So, but you need to understand EV fires are very rare. In a worldwide, if you calculate, it is very low. But we don't know which at any time it can be happen. So we need to be prepared on these cases as well.
I think Kashwant, if you can go back to Phil's side. I think while rewinding back to the main question where we had a concern in terms of yes, yes, okay. The second-hand market value, what will be the future in terms of EVs? I think EVs, I mean second-hand market and everything. A few myths or misconceptions that I have to clarify before is, first of all, I think EVs, the main EVs coming to Sri Lanka is manufactured in China. People, first of all, people think Chinese manufacturers are new to this. Actually not. That's one of the first misconceptions we have. So why it is there? Because China has been actually producing automotive components for the last 2 or 3 decades. So even though they have not been in the automotive, they have been the ones producing components to these automotive giants in the country. They have been a production industry, as we know, for the last 30 or 20 or 30 years. That's one factor. And so when it comes to EVs, they are anyway, Chinese are the best in terms of battery technology and motor technology. They are well ahead. What they did was simply they took the battery technology, they took the motor technology. They already have the background of producing automotive components. They just compiled everything together, and then they just invested so much in R&D. Within 3-4 years, they came up to the same track as the other manufacturer. Now they're actually beating them in the game. So that we have to understand that Chinese manufacturers are not new to this. They are already seasoned players who are now just figuring it out how to put everything together and then give a good product, and they are doing it well. But in terms of when determining how a second-hand market, second-hand vehicle or vehicle, value of vehicle. So another factor I have to highlight is Sri Lanka is a market which is actually really good for after sales, because it's a country where vehicles come in, they don't go out. So Singapore, you have a policy where after certain 3 to 5 years, the taxation of used vehicle is high. Even in Japan, it's that. That's why they use vehicles up to around 3 years and then re-export it to another country like Sri Lanka, where we take it in. So I think that's one of the things is they have strapping policies and so on, whereas the vehicle value drops. But in Sri Lanka, you can understand now even the last 3 weeks, the reconditioned vehicle prices went up because the brand new vehicle prices went up. Because the brand new vehicle prices went up because of the surcharge, and then the reconditioned vehicles also went up. So Sri Lankan market, I think, is a very unique market. When we also deal with manufacturers coming into the country, we have a tough time explaining to them how this second-hand market works, why they also have this high value for the second vehicle as well. But if you actually look at why the factors that determine the second-hand market sees first the demand for the brand or specific model. So if now, for example, if I take, there are certain models at O3 now we do not import. So the selling price of that model is now higher than the actual retail price is sold at. It's brought it down at 14.7. Now the resale price is even higher than that. So demand for a brand or specific model. So make sure you look at a brand which is or model, even if it's ISO or not. If you want to have a second-hand value, if you consider this as an asset, go for a brand or model that has high volume, where there's a high demand for that car. Second is, of course, like I said, the second-hand value depends on the government tariff structure as well. Simply the day after the surcharge was implemented, second-hand vehicle values went up. If suddenly in the next financial year, the government decides to reduce the tariff on EVs, and then you can buy a brand new EV for 7 million, then again the value will drop. So things like that, you can see value for money, spare parts availability, after sales, everything decides, I think, the second-hand market of a
I think
vehicle.
it's nice set of points that everyone can. I saw some people taking pictures, so it will be a valuable point. So to end this round, my final question before we move on to the Q&A session. Now, end of life. So myself being interested in sustainable manufacturing, what would happen to the end of life batteries? Vehicle, of course, we can talk about metal and plastic and resin or fabric. But what about the end of life battery treatment? Now, in the European Commission, there is a regulation called ELV end of life vehicles directive. So that is being updated in the latest version 2026. So ELV directive. So that the manufacturers are responsible to treat their vehicles and their battery pack if they have whatever the motive power, engines or batteries. Now, what is the situation in Sri Lanka? Do we have such thing or any future on that line?
Okay. So this is one of the biggest thing that we have to think about. I mean, we have to talk about in EVs because we are an island. So there's no way out that we can send the batteries or dispose the batteries other than sending them from here to somewhere else, or we have to find a way to recycle them in-house. So currently, unfortunately, in our country, there's no regulations that properly regulated this industry. Even if you look at lead acid batteries, what happened with the lead acid is they recycle it to a certain level, but lead sulfide, which is something that they can't commercially viably recycle. So that's the same story for EVs. But like you said, the EV manufacturers, they have regulations where they don't provide a brand new battery out of their stock from their stocks unless they get the replacement, I mean the used battery to their warehouse. So they follow that strict guidelines. But if you look at the EV brands that now we are having in our country, I'm not sure all of them will stick to that rule. So we have to think about the afterlife, like you said. So for example, as the example that we have is Nissan Leaf, people found a solution. They use their cells for their solar storage. So which is something, of course, we can do in our country. But what happens afterwards? Because at the end of the life, these are chemicals that we can't expose to our environment. We should find a way to dispose them properly. So currently, as EV manufacturers, like we are into EV manufacturing segment, we have partner up with other parties where they will export the battery cells because these are rare minerals and everything is there, lithium ion is there. So they will take back the batteries, but of course we have to spend some money to send them, and these are dangerous cargo. So we have to take those factors into the account. But of course, as responsible people, we have to find proper ways of disposal. Then again, the EV batteries, let's say you have used your SOH up to like 70%. Still, that 70% is a huge number. You will be able to use that if you use it in a proper way for solar charging and all that. You will be able to extend the lifetime to another 10 years or so. So this is a problem that we will face like next 10 to 15 years. But of course, we have to get ready for that. The discussion that we had with the environmental ministry and all this industry ministry was we had a plan. We discussed a way to handle this. So the idea came up at that point is if we can charge extra amount based on the battery capacity as a deposit, then we will put that fund in maybe in environmental ministry or under environment ministry or industry ministry. And once you have end of life battery pack, the people will know that there's a value for this. Then they, rather than they will dump it in somewhere else, they will put it, they will come to these authorities and say there's a battery pack, if I can have my refund back, or if there's the certain value for that battery that predefined, then they will come to the authorities. So unfortunately, that was something that they should have do before we open up the vehicle ban and all that. But still, I think that kind of initiative is something that we need for our country.
I think we can keep on talking, but then our audience is looking at, maybe they have different questions than what we have prepared. I think we have addressed many doubts in your minds. But now it is time for Q&A. When you're asking a question, please mention your name, and if you are pointing towards one of the panelists, you can see the names, panelists 1, 2, 3, their names. Please point the question, and please be specific to the question rather than, giving ideas extended. So in short, please ask questions. We can allow some 4, 5 questions.
Paul, thank you very much for your elaboration and details. We are very happy about the details. I would like to know, is this all slides we couldn't see? Therefore, is it possible to get the copy of this in your IESL website, or this thing? If you put it, we can get the details all.
Yeah, for that I will answer, because this is organized from IMECT and IESL together.
Okay.
The ownership is for the panelists. We will discuss with the panelists.
I think these are not secret things. It should be known.
Yeah.
Should be general public should know.
That's
better.
fine. We will have to discuss with the panelists, and then we will make a decision.
Okay.
Anyway, you can meet them at the fellowship.
Is it possible to get it to the pen? Or better to put it to the ISL website? Anybody can see.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other one is they mentioned about the charging. If every day we charge, normally we use the vehicle. Sometimes, according to this economic problem, some people are not using the vehicle every day, at least once a week or once a month sometime. Therefore, which vehicle is better, the fuel or the EV, and what is the repercussion on this the problem? Okay, thank you.
Just to answer your question, now if your vehicle is charging per month, and if you keep a higher SOC rate in your vehicle, let's say you are keeping it on an 80% value for a more than 2 to 3 weeks, it will degrade your battery, or it will accelerate your aging. So there are procedures which is given by the manufacturer. You always need to follow them depending upon the brand. So if it is time like 3 weeks, we advise to keep the state of charge on your battery 50 to 60. And depending upon your vehicle configuration, it can be different. Now, let's say it is dropping up to 30, then you know this, there is a high voltage battery, and of course there is already a auxiliary battery, 12 volt battery. So depending upon the manufacturer, now let's say if it go beyond 30, it will cut off charging the low voltage battery. So in that case, you need to charge it back to 50 and keep it. Otherwise, the battery management system and everything is going to like in a area that it will not collect the data, and it will again become a problem. So my suggestion is, depending upon the manufacturer, you need to go through the specs. Otherwise, your battery will be getting in a faster age. It's not like that when we discuss it.
It's not, because manufacturer charging cycle counts from 0 to 100%. But the effect on the battery itself from 0 to 20% and from 80 to 100% is different. So it's not the same life cycle. Yes. So if you keep it charged, like he said, above 80% in most cases, it will increase the degradation because the battery chemistry is very unstable. And in that period, if you look at the physically, what happens is when you charge the battery, we call it breathing. So battery get expanded. So if it's above 80%, the deformity is there. So it should come back to the normal level as soon as possible. If it's not, that deformity will be a permanent thing. Then the lithium deposits and all these things happens. So that's the real case, that you are advised not to keep it charged above 80%. So with the research data, what we have seen is, if you keep it, like he said, 3 weeks, even a day will count. So if you are not, I mean, if you're not if you're not planning for a longer ride, it's always advised to keep it below like 60% or so. But the practical, it won't be, I mean, it won't be practical in most cases, but try your best to keep it at that level.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Parag Bajaj. I have many questions, but I leave it just to general comment first. Sri Lanka lost 2 opportunities in early times when the EVs started coming in, and also when the first DYDs came in. You know, practically overnight, Minister of Finance pumped the duties on EVs. First, only country in the whole world to have done that, right? So immediately the crash. We had the opportunity that they really picked up and gone. I was one of the first to buy a BYD at that time. That we lost that opportunity. How much money we wasted during that time, not having EVs, by pumping out all our money to buy it. Second time, when they wanted to permit these things, in fact, I personally wrote to the president, for God's sake, allow only EVs to come. But you know what happened? You said only 10% tax. All we have got gas guzzlers. It had taken Mr. Trump to kick us to the back. Now at least I hope some sense will go on and start promoting EVs. Now, one other complaint I have is all the people who are selling EVs also doing a very big disservice, promoting the PHEVs, saying that you have a range of 1,200 kilometers. It's a complete deception. You see, before EVs came, you could have done 5,000 kilometers before. There are enough petrol stations, you can go anywhere. So that is a deception, and unfortunately, our poor people don't have the sense to see through that. I would say, don't buy a PHEV. If you're buying, buy a EV, because like you said, we have 200 charging stations. And I would say, again, from my own experience, BYD did 400 kilometers. I never charge outside. See, but I travel a bit. Most of the time, the 400 more than enough for me to go anywhere I want. I could go to Kandy, I could go to Nagala, I could go to Madhur, I could go up to Taligam, right? But that has changed now. Now they have arranged vehicles, and now we have charging stations. So you will use the charges outside only for just a bit of top up. Otherwise, you can manage everything. So this is all, you have to do your own thinking, what you want to buy and what is your usage pattern is. I would say practically all what you do is you have to go out and range is more than, leave it there, have the car and go. The difference you pay, you would have it for buying a PHEV, would not be worth it. Anyway, that's comment. Now, main thing I want to comment about is that now, like my first BYD, for 5 years ran beautifully. Again, it up in this thing, but only one cell failed, right, after 5 years. So battery, as you know, is a number of cells, no? But unfortunately, there was nobody in Sri Lanka who could change that cell by a new battery, right? But I think that's going to change. I know there's a party in Lanka who assembles battery, brings the cells and assembles the battery. So The worry about end of life and all that is long, long way off. We'll have lot of solutions. And when at a recent meeting, when the Minister of Environment talked about, I said, there's a problem about the disposal battery, right? I asked that lady, what have you done with the millions of lead acid batteries that we have been disposing of? There are no system at all. So, yeah, exactly, that's right. So all of a sudden, that I think is a deception, try to prevent the EVs coming. And somebody will pick it up and just to wave a flag at the very dangerous. What do do with this? Millions of batteries when we have only about 10,000-20,000 vehicles. That is a complete deception. Please do not allow that spread. There are solutions even now. You can export the batteries, for there are people who are ready to take them. And also I'd like to mention, I really look forward to batteries coming out so that I use it for solar. Right? That's the second life. So these are generally, I have multiple questions. Thank you very much for bringing this very important this thing. And IESL has a role to take this value of EVs for Sri Lanka out to the politicians and the people. Because if we miss this chance, now you know, last month, let's see, what is fuel bill was some $850 million. So that means annually it will be more than 10 billion, double what we have used. So somebody should wake up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Any specific questions to direct to the panel, please?
I'm Rohan Fernando. I'm a civil engineer, but I know that all these battery electric vehicles, BEVs or fully electric vehicles, are not coupled with an alternator to recharge the battery. I was wondering why it cannot be coupled, because you can couple it to a pulley and a belt, and not to give heavy load to the movements, but still you can have certain amount of charging and charging of the battery through an alternator. But I was just thinking whether it would work, because sometimes you are having if you don't have a charging point, but still if you have that kind of option, you may be able to reach a charging point rather than depleting the battery completely. So I was just thinking, why can't they have that option as an additional thing?
Okay. In EVs, I think the model with that option is the PHEV and other range extended versions. But with the EVs, if you compare with normal ICE engine, there's a device called DC-DC converter, which is doing the part that been done by these alternators. But then again, that unit runs with the high voltage battery itself. So without the use in high voltage battery, you won't be able to use that unit. So EVs are always designed such a way, the weight and all these factors that the efficiency, they have taken these factors into the count and designed such a way the vehicle weight is very low and the efficiency is high. Then adding more and more components will destroy that fact. So I think having extra units, like you may have seen that keeping an generator inside the vehicle itself and traveling around, those things are kind of misuse of EVs, I would say, because EVs are not designed for that purposes. Yeah, it is.
Yes. I'll let. I'll explain about the regenerative braking. So we conduct a lot of driver trainings as well because it's depending upon the again manufacturer. Now some manufacturers they prefer to have a one or level 2 or 3 regenerative brakes. So where you can recharge the battery. And there are another version like intelligent recuperation, like it's fully autonomous and in a distance, if you there is a car, it will take the control and it will automatically break down the vehicle, and during this phase it will charge the battery. So those are the things as a driver you should master. So then you can take the advantage of that.
To answer his question, AC charging or the DC charging, what's the best? So home charging is the best because it's always slow and controlled, and the vehicle will be in a cooler environment. But it's cheaper, of course. At this moment, it's the cheapest. But going forward, if the PUCSL works right, the commercial charging will be cheaper. Okay. So back to the point, the home charging, like I said, is the best because if you pump slowly, there's time for the electrons to handle, I mean, the deposits and everything properly. Then it will keep your battery in good condition. But the practical cases, like you can't avoid fast charging. So in that case, if you are a EV user, if you have to use fast charger, you should use it, I would say, because these batteries are designed such a way it will last for at least 8 years. They won't degrade that fast. So you don't have to waste your time, I would say. If you have to travel far, then if you have to spend another 6 hours at home, it's not going to work. So don't, I would say, don't afraid to charge at commercial chargers unless you want it. Because if you have plenty of time, if you can manage your journey, of course, stick to home charging. Like he said, it's best for your batteries as well. This is the thing. Like I said, if there's a active cooling system within the vehicle itself, it will always make sure the battery runs in optimum conditions. But if the vehicle being exposed to sunlight for a longer period, of course, that will affect the battery. So by letting the battery, like after charging, by letting it for 30 minutes, won't settle the battery, because the temperature that goes up is the whole battery pack itself. It will take more than 3 days. We have observed that it takes more than 3 days to come down the temperature of the battery pack, because it's a closed system. So that's the answer.
I have two questions to Engineer Kasun Sajid. I am Jagat. Regarding fuel for transport vehicles, 50% fuel goes for commercial transport. What is Sri Lanka's plan for commercial transport electrification? And the second question is retrofitting is a solution for commercial vehicle transportation? Okay.
Good question, sir. So far, we haven't seen any commercial vehicle being imported to Sri Lanka in that case. Only one vehicle being imported. It's still in the port, I guess. It's a prime mover being imported to the country. So the thing is, if you look at a prime mover or bus, the energy required for those vehicles are very huge. Like it comes with more than 250 kilowatts of battery pack. And the prime mover that I mentioned came with a 400 kilowatt charger. So the infrastructure is the problem, because where do you find 400? Where do we find 400 kilowatts available? And there were discussions recently happening with USAID and all these authorities regarding electrification of buses. And my personal experience, we had a discussion in Kandy. So as soon as the discussion starts, the CB said we can't provide the 250 kilowatt power to this particular location because the infrastructure cost is huge. So So our country is facing this problem at the moment. But of course, these are the things that government should initiate, because still our country is not ready for power wheeling. Because if the power wheeling is there, private sector is almost ready to put the solar and all this infrastructure. And some of these bus importers are ready to bring down the buses with the chargers itself. So government should take those initiatives. And the public transportation, of course, one thing I have to address is the tuk-tuks. So we have in our country more than 1 million tuk-tuks, and around it says like 1.4 million, but out of 1.4 million, 900,000 tuk-tuks being used every day. So compare a tuk-tuk with a hybrid vehicle. I'll take 2 minutes. Tuk weighs around 400 kilograms, let's say 500 kilograms. You can only drive 20 to 25 kilometers per liter. Whereas my hybrid vehicle, it's a Toyota Aqua, I have 1.5 ton vehicle where I can still do the same range as a tuk-tuk compared with the tuk-tuk. So tuks are the most inefficient vehicles, I would say. So if you replace tuks by retrofitting the tuks to EV or replacing them with brand new electric three-wheelers, we can save significant amount of money. And we did some calculations. If you convert 200,000 tuks and imagine 100,000 tuks being used daily, still you will be able to save $15 million per month from the fuel imports. Okay, this was back in like when the dollar rate was around 295 or so. So imagine the situation now. If you go in this Boralla to Peta, in the main road, you might have seen there's a petrol shed fully occupied by the tuks. There are queues every day. So all these money goes as dollars to other countries because of the fuel imports. Because we don't use EVs every day. If you have let's say I have a car, I won't be using that for 250 kilometers every day, no. But these tuk drivers, they drive daily because that's their main earning method. So they have to drive at least 100 or 150 kilometers. So they have to burn that fuel anyway. So I think I answered the question, right?
Right. Yes. Thank
with my experience, with the feedback I got from clients, of course, they come with the idea that they need 250 kilometers range per charge. But once they adapt to the fast chargers availability and all these fast charging points and home charging, they manage to do 250 kilometers without any issue. But they have to manage it. Of course, if they have more than 250 kilometers, they will do more because they won't stop for charging. So they will use that time to earning. But still 100 to 150 kilometers is option with the fast charging. If it's without fast charging, that's a question.
Right. I think in the interest of time,
Look, I'm just going to add a small comment to what Kasun said earlier regarding the electrification of the public transport. So I'm actually working with an Australian firm at the moment. So they are trying to bring down a solution that can handle the electrification of the public transport. So so they're proposing something with a charging solution as well. So they've partnered with a Chinese firm that offers that solution. So there is talk on that background in there, but it's just that I think from a government perspective and even from IESL perspective, I think that's an activity that we should push as a community to the government as well to get that idea on board.
To add that, we have converted nearly 175 tuks now already to electric, and then another, I would say, 100 units pending orders we already have.
right.
On
I think just to add to that, in terms of commercial, one of the main concerns Sri Lanka as is we are a country, tropical country where we have 365 days sunlight, but we don't have any storage solutions. So the actually what we are actually trialing, PYD is trialing this in other multiple countries where storage solutions combined with solar, where you have storage, then which can go up to around 1 megawatt charging. So that is also something Sri Lanka can consider because we have sunlight every single day. But in terms of there's no government policy or favoration in terms of storage solutions. We don't have duty concessions or anything for storage solutions as well. So I think as a country, if we implement these things for storage solutions, for charging solutions, maybe less tariffs to encourage people to invest, I think that will go a long way in terms of public as well.
Yeah, yeah. So we need to.
I have one more.
wind up.
One more.
There is a question from the back as well. Can allow only one question. If you can shout out, we'll give the chance for him first. Yeah, Danuka, yes. Keep the question short and keep the answers short, please.
Yeah, so we had a idea to put that in our the vehicle that we designed, the three-wheeler, but then again the cost matters because it costs you significant amount of money if you replace the onboard charger with a we call it a V2L system or V2H system. So that's the main concern. But other than that, I think that's a good option if we can give with the vehicles. I think BYDs already have that.
We so not just most of them imports EV imports that we get right now already comes with the V2L. You tell me vehicle to load. So we experience customers using this as well in the previous power cuts and so on, where you can actually use it. But yes, there are discussions ongoing where we can maybe use EVs to store during the day on solar, and then maybe this and peak time we can give it back to the grid. But I think Sri Lankan infrastructure is not strong enough, not built enough where we can't even take in the solar excess into back to our grid. So that's also a problem. I think these few things in terms of infrastructure, also policies and infrastructure, Sri Lanka needs to come forward, I think, a bit more rapidly to bridge this gap mainly.
Right.
At some point, we'll be able to get there, I think.
Right. One
more question.
last one after the last question, right? No
Okay.
more questions. Yes.
So just in the design of electric vehicles, how do you design the torque of the motor? Because I see the initial, in an internal combustion engine, the torque increases up to 4,000 RPM, 4,500 RPM. It reaches the maximum torque. But in practice, I have driven with electric vehicles. I am driving a IC engine, but I see the top end power of, even though the initial pickup is acceleration is more with the EV vehicles, but the top end power is less than the IC engine. So I just want to know the torque, whether you are having a variable torque or different torque in the motor.
Okay, so interesting question. So the motors that been used in EVs, we call them PMSM, permanent magnet synchronous motors. So almost all these motors, the AC driven motors, they have constant torque until to a certain RPM. We call it the base RPM. Until you reach that point, you have a constant torque. Then we call it the field weakening region. So where you have to weaken the the field of the motor to get the maximum RPM. Then the torque will degrade. So it's called the we have to go into the field oriented controlling in that case. So that's the question, that's the problem with EVs. But now we have seen that motors are evolving, that the constant torque region is getting like 6,000 RPMs and beyond that. So most of the time that we are using EVs, we won't reach in that level. So it's like 120 kilometers or 150 kilometers top speed. That of course varies with the battery voltage, because if the battery voltage is high, the field weakening point is far beyond. So you can reach to certain speed. Then again, there are EVs with gearboxes to overcome that problem. For example, the supercars that been developed, they have come up with 2 or 3 gear systems automatically changed, but with the torque requirement, it automatically changes. So then that's how we overcome that system. But most of these commercial vehicles, we don't see that gear systems, but it's only it's a single gear system. So that's
Right.
what it is.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Let me conclude. We had a topic EVs in Sri Lanka, a solution or illusion. I think we have a fruitful discussion. We can see the enthusiasm about Q&A session. So the panelists will be staying further during the fellowship downstairs. So you can personally direct your questions to the panelists and get your things clarified, and which vehicle to buy, which kilowatt, which capacity, hybrid or petrol or diesel or EV, full EV or PHEV, whatever. So continue that discussion during the fellowship. And thank you very much for joining in numbers and registering in numbers. There are online questions as well we cannot entertain at the moment. I apologize for the online crowd. And there are so many people joining online. With that, we would like to conclude the panel discussion officially. I would like to hand over the proceedings to Kasun Tabak. Over to you, Kasun.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you to our moderator, Dr. J.R. Gamge, and honored panelists from the specialists, I would say, because they are the experts in the field as well as in the technology. For this enlightening and engaging discussion, for this gathering as well as for the online participation. Before concluding today's event, it's our privilege to recognize and appreciate the valuable contribution made by our distinguished panelists and the moderator for this panel discussion. On behalf of Institution of Mechanical Engineers, Sri Lanka Group, the ISL Transportation Subcommittee, and the ISL Mechanical Engineering Sectional Committee, we express our sincere gratitude to the time, expertise, and insights shared with us in this evening. To present the tokens of appreciation, I would like to invite Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksiri together with Engineer Prasad Lasanta. Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksiri is the past president of the ISL, together with Engineer Prasad Lasanta, who is the current chairman of the IMEC Sri Lanka Group, as well as newly appointed chairmen of the SAR region of the IMEC, it means South Asia region. So I would like to invite you to come to the front to hand over the tokens of appreciation. So may I first invite our moderator, Dr. J.R. Gamage, to receive the token of appreciation from our distinguished participation. Thank you, Doctor, and Dr. Kamal Laksiri and Engineer Prasad Lasan. Please stay for a minute. So to hand over the token of appreciation for our first panelist, Engineer Kasun Kitanjana Gamage, I would like to invite you to the front to take the token of appreciation. Thank you, panelists, as well as our distinguished specialists here. Now I invite our panelist, Engineer Chaturanga Kahawat, and to hand over the token of appreciation, I would like to invite Engineer Grani Jailat, former president of ISL, together with the Engineer Lal Veerasinghe, who is the former chairman of the IMEC Sri Lanka Group, to hand over the token of appreciation to our panelist number 2, Engineer Chaturanga Kahavatta. Finally, I would like to invite Engineer Kasun Sachit Sirivardhana to take the appreciation token from our specialists. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I would like to join Mitvi in thanking our distinguished guests and the panelists with warm round of applause. Professionals, we have now come to the conclusion of today's program. It's my pleasure to invite Engineer Loshan Palayangoda, Chair of Membership Development of the IMEC Sri Lanka Group, active member of ISL Mechanical Engineering Section Committee, and Director and Country Manager for Sri Lanka and Maldives at Forbes Marshall, to deliver the vote of thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Engineer Loshan Palayangoda.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. What an insightful session we had. So still the question is there. So I think it's not an illusion anymore. It's a solution. So the way the panelists handled and the way they've been discussed and the activeness of all the participants over here. So my duty is to thank everyone, because this is not an easy task to put up this much of numbers over here at ISL. And also, the panelists with all the busy time frame that they are having. So they made sure that they are there for sharing the knowledge. So I will first start with the ISL. On behalf of the ISL, sectional committee, mechanical sectional committee, MESC, and IMEC Sri Lanka chapter, and ISL transportation subcommittee, TSC, and my sincere gratitude to all the panelists. So especially Engineer Kasun Geethananda, technical trainer, DEMO PLC, and Engineer Chaturanga Kahavatta, head of after sales, BYD and ENSA, John Keels, CG Auto Private Limited, and Engineer Kasun Sirivardhana, Director, Electronics and Embedded Systems, Vega Innovations Private Limited. And thank you very much for your time and then sharing your, all ideas without any hesitation and keeping anything with you. So you made sure that Sri Lanka is moving towards EV in future. And I'm also from a similar field, but not on the automobile, but I'm also now been focusing most of the industries, instead of having fossil fuel fired boilers, to move them towards electrical fired boilers. So it is in time now. It's high time the world is moving. So it is a correct time we had this kind of a session. And highly thankful for my colleague JR Gavage, Dr. JR. So you're always there in IMEC leading the sessions, and today as the moderator. So you did a wonderful job. Thank you for that, JR. And my sincere gratitude to Engineer Kausal Kamrudaniya, President ISL, and Engineer Dr. Kamal Laksari, past President ISL, Engineer Granny Layat, former President ISL, and also the Chairman of Transport Subcommittee ISL, and Engineer Lasantha Kurukura Archie, Chair, IMEC Sri Lanka Chapter, and also now he's the Chair of South Asia Chapter as well. And Engineer Chanaka Vanarchi, Vice President and the Trust Board Representative of IMEC UK. And gracing the event, mainly all the participants, thank you very much. And also we all need to appreciate the effort of our colleague Kasunta, because Kasunta has put up his full efforts to putting up a very successful event. Kasunta, thank you very much, because without your effort, this much of turnaround will not happen. And all the participants, Thank you very much for being here. And also in the evening, after this session, we have arranged a fellowship at the ISL launch. So we are inviting everyone to participate for the event. Thank you very much.